There, I see the live. Perfect. Hi. So I think instead of talking vaccines like we have been starting for many meetings lately, since Emma will be joining us soon, I thought we'd spend some time talking about ventilation. So first question is, a while back, we had talked about a list of rooms that were do not use rooms, that were rooms in each building that had been identified as having air exchanges per hour that were low enough to indicate that they shouldn't be used for students. So we're wondering if we can have a copy of that list, if that list is still in development. I know Nexus was just back, if there are any updates on that. That was like 6 questions in one. So that's kind of, we'll kick it off with that.
All right, so yeah, so the answer to that is yes, we can generate that list. The fortunate part is that it's an easier list to generate now than it was previously, because we've addressed a lot of the issues. So most of the rooms that we have that would be, I guess, do not use rooms are rooms that they're like interior rooms without windows at this point. So even some of the do not use rooms actually exceed the desired air exchanges per hour. It was just a matter of, having like students in a room without windows. So
okay.
There, yeah. We actually went back and retested a lot of the ones that we initially said we weren't going to test that were on the not use list. So we can give.
And that was, I'm sorry, was Nexus just back in to do that testing this week?
Starting last week, they hit a bunch of spots, and then they finished up this week. Yeah.
Excellent. Have they generated one of their fantastic reports for you yet?
Yes. So we have an updated report of those rooms, and then we have an amended version of our the report.
Got it. The full report.
Yeah.
Can we have a copy of that? Probably the full amended report would be best at this point, because it has everything all in one place. That has been really nice.
Yep. And that one also includes, like, it'll look semi-confusing because it'll say recommended air purifiers 0, and then it'll say air purifier present. That was because we decided that any room that's like a core classroom was going to have one regardless.
That sounds great.
You'll see rooms that have 11 air exchanges with an air purifier that brings it up to 17.
Okay, excellent. Great. And that, I guess, brings me, the next question I have is about those air purifiers. So I know that when the air purifiers are doing an amazing job in the classrooms to help actually filter the air, because they are what is providing the filtration for the classroom. The main blower system is providing fresh air since we're exiting heating season, and those air purifiers are what's actually purifying the air. But we know that in certain spaces they're not optimal because they actually overdo the job. We're curious about staff moving those air purifiers around. We know that if common wisdom would indicate if one is good, then probably 2 is better, or something like that, or if my room doesn't have one, I probably should. I'm going to find a way to get one. But we know that not all rooms can support having those and still maintain good air circulation. So I guess it would be helpful to know and communicate that information with people so that we're sure that the air purifiers are in the rooms where they are intended to be, to help keep air circulation its best. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's kind of, so that's perfect timing, because that was kind of what our thinking was with coming up with this not new version of the report, but the more comprehensive report. Because like I was saying, it actually does illustrate whether or not one is necessary for that room and these sorts of things. And so, yeah, I think it's covered in the new report. And I think we can do like a synopsis at the end that kind of gives you the broader view of where they are necessary. But yeah, at this point, that's what we're doing is moving purifiers to where they need to be. And as far as like positioning in the classroom, did I hear that right?
That would be great. Sure. Yes.
Yeah, because they're functional anywhere, but like what would be common sense to me wouldn't be to other folks, right? Like putting them right next to a unit ventilator, that's probably not the ideal place to put it, because you're cleaning air and then you're sucking it right back out of the room. So we don't want to do that. But yeah, we'll do a little write-up on that.
Okay. And for some of the spaces that are, I think we've talked about this situation before, where if a room is smaller, putting in one of these filters might actually overdo the circulation. So I think that's becoming more of a concern when we're thinking about small spaces where students might have an evaluation done or something like that, that people might feel like they should have one of these big air purifiers in their space. But that actually would be counterproductive to cleaning the air. So there's some concern about like knowing which spaces should have them and which should not at the same time, and being able to communicate that.
Yeah.
Do you think, so would it be possible to include which rooms should not have these?
Yeah. Yes. The short answer is yes. And that's kind of what we did with this newer report.
I just think, some of our common themes in this group have been in times where there's a lot of information and we have new safety protocol coming, the more clear and concise we can make things for people, the higher chances of having successful implementation. And so I think if we can add to that list rooms that we know that should not have the air purifiers, I think that's going to help people as well, so that they aren't finding one in a closet and thinking I should have this because more is better.
Right.
Personally, I'm in the more is better camp. So I want like 3 in my classroom, but that's probably not going to help my air circulation. So I think if we can have that, so have the list of rooms we should not use, rooms that should have HEPA filters, rooms that should not have HEPA filters, and then maybe some information, I guess the 4th point, on where in the classroom is the ideal location. I think that will help. That'll give people, staff, a sense of, knowledge is power, and will also improve our safety to the greatest degree possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so next is another question about air and ventilation. We know that most of the spaces in our buildings operate with their own air handling systems, and it's not shared air in the whole building. But at one point, you mentioned that we do know which rooms do have shared air spaces, and we're curious if we can have some of that information as well to help people who will be, since we're talking about moving everybody back into buildings, we're using all those nooks and crannies now that we maybe wouldn't have been earlier. So we're wondering about those spaces that do have shared air, if you have a map or a list of those spaces, so we can plan accordingly.
Yeah, so just yes, we can identify specific zones within, and there'd be multiple zones within any particular area. But the easiest way to think about it is if your room is on an outside wall, it has a univent, and all the ones with shared ventilation are interior rooms. So like Wildwood, you're thinking like Wildwood and Fort River, same building. You're thinking about like the teachers area, the central area there.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think Crocker's unique because it was updated like in modern times. So like there, I think it's mostly just the main office area. But yeah, we can identify that.
Okay. Because okay, and I think, Jean, do you have any questions about ventilation while we're on a roll with Ben here?
I just noticed that we just lost Emma, so I'm not sure if.
Okay, she does feel like this.
Oh, hi, Emma. Sorry, I thought I was worried you were thinking we were being rude because we didn't welcome you.
No, somehow I got into the back of the whatever. So
welcome.
Next page.
I had one other for you. So in our buildings that have foldable walls, we are curious about how those foldable walls influence circulation, and whether those then count as shared air spaces for those particular spaces, I guess, in not Crocker, in Fort River and Wildwood.
Like those, for me to visualize it, we're talking about like front hallway, there'd be the small little breakout rooms that turn into one.
We're thinking the bigger space. There's a space in those buildings where part of it's cafeteria space with foldable wall, and I think it's slated for use right now. One side will be classroom, one side will be staff lunches. So we're curious about how that air exchange happens in that space.
Okay, so each of those are on a unit ventilator themselves, in they're factored in just for that space. So then, like, it'd be a positive if you open the wall, you actually would increase airflow. But yeah, they're designed to work with the wall closed, essentially.
So each of the spaces with the wall closed has its own univent?
Yep. For good and for bad. Like if you've ever been there during like the lunch in the winter, one cafeteria will be super hot, the next one will be whatever it is, and then the third cafeteria will have its own climate. That's the reason for it is the univent. That's more for my folks at Wildwood and Fort River watching.
that was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog just came in. That's the squeaking.
Now, the only other question that I had, and I think it will show up on the Nexus report, is that one problematic area in Crocker Farm, that upper classroom that's in the corner there, that for whatever reason, we figured out why that specific room seems to test lower.
Yeah, that one I haven't been directly involved with. What I did see recently was the testing that just came back, which ironically is, if I remember the building map correctly, that actually will be my son's class. But
no, that
the other end.
Yeah, the
Okay.
other end.
Yeah. So it's been mitigated, but I don't have an exact remedy for you yet. But I can figure out exactly what they did.
I'm talking about the space that's directly over the preschool coordinator's office. That classroom, which will be occupied.
Yep.
Soon.
We initially had to use like 2 air purifiers to get it up, but when we just did the after the last report, that changed. So I need to find out exactly what it was because it was our HVAC guy that did it. So I have to figure out exactly what he did to it.
Okay, it would be helpful to know why that specific space continues to test low.
Yeah, like no offense to the people that did the remodeling on that building, but there were some things that weren't factored into the initial engineering there. I'm being nice. Not how we talked about it necessarily, but yeah.
I have some concerns as well, but I'll keep those to myself. All right, Emma, thank you again, as always, rock star. As particularly around the regional clinics for educators. So I know Krista has a list that, we just wanted to thank you again for the list, the regional clinics, but Krista has a list of some other issues that we're hoping to get some clarification on.
Great.
Yes, and thank you again.
Yeah.
Vaccines are so important, and we just thank you for helping to get those out. I have a question for you about lunch spaces. So as we're thinking about, moving people into buildings, and we have large numbers of staff entering buildings, and thinking about how staff ought to be eating lunch. Mm-hmm. Do you have recommendations for us on how staff can most safely eat lunch inside a shared lunch room? I know some buildings are planning to have single locations where staff will be told to have lunch. Well, staff may choose to go eat lunch in their cars on their own. That's not always an option for people. So having an indoor space where staff can eat is something that is being provided, but how can staff eat most safely indoors?
Yeah, to continue to socially distance when you're eating. So anytime that your mask is down, make sure that we have enough separation from others, or if we are around other people. Some people prefer to eat if they have a designated classroom or their desk. They might choose to do that, to be isolated away from others rather than eating in a communal area. I think at this, I'm starting to smile because it makes me think of the beginning of the pandemic, but people should not be sharing drinks or food, or silverware, right? That we should continue to have our own utensils and everything, and food products and drinks. And then to make sure that we are just doing that really good hand washing and hygiene before and after you eat. But I would say the socially distanced part of it is what we're finding is most helpful.
And in times of adults eating together, is the recommendation for that social distancing still 6 feet, or is there another number that makes more sense given adults and eating with masks off?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I would have to see if there's literature about that, but from what I've heard, I think it's still 6 feet recommended as a gold standard.
Great, thanks. Jean, do you have any other lunch questions?
No, not specifically about lunch. I think we were also wanting to know about contact tracing still, which continues to be difficult. We know it's time consuming, but it's so necessary.
Yeah, I know with the school system and contact tracing with students that were affected and if they were affected, or staff, that the school nurse team has really been tasked with that. So I would kind of refer back to Robin Supernaut on that.
Great, thanks. Jean, you had a transportation question. I'm just looking at the clock, and I think we're down to about 5 minutes.
Yes, I love math. So Ben, here's a math question. The average car length is what? Like a full-size car is what? Like, would you say like 16 feet-ish?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, so if we're anticipating 112 cars to be dropping off students at Crocker Farm, and I don't know, ballpark, the length of the West Street driveway, 2,000 feet, maybe?
I don't even want to ballpark that one. I should know that because of the Crocker study.
I'm just concerned about traffic flow, because West Street is a pretty heavily used route, particularly in the mornings, in the afternoons. And what, you're putting on I'm asking you to put your other hat on as facilities. What is the district doing? I think probably Crocker is the one that would potentially have the biggest issue, since there's just that one access point. And West Street, again, is a fairly busy thoroughfare. I'm just wondering how that's going to work.
Yeah, so actually, Crocker was the easiest to kind of plan out because of the Shays Street entrance.
Right.
So in a typical year, and okay, so let me back up for a second. So normally people park back there, right, on the in that
Street. Yeah, Shea Street is the turnaround, and we're losing some staff parking, which is going to be my next question. Where staff are going to park?
So the purpose for losing that parking is because I don't want to keep trashing the people for design.
No. They did not include enough space,
Right.
turnaround space.
The turning radius for a bus was not included into the parking spaces that were added on. So what we've done was to take those away as parking spaces and then use that area strictly for bus and vans. So that frees up that front part of the building in terms of parent pickup, which is, so what we figured was, it sounds weird, but every bus is 2.5 cars, roughly on average. And we're talking like full-size sedan, Taurus or something like that.
Yeah, they're like, it's about 16 feet, I think.
Yeah. So that frees up a lot of space. And then once we did out the modeling, there's no concerns with backup. It's, into West Street there, because we have like the island area and all that. We have extra space to put cars there. The only issue that I would foresee is like the increased traffic volume coming out. Like, it's going to be, I'll point blank and period, it's going to be annoying if you have to drive down West Street during that period.
That's where I was getting, because there is going to have to be some time frame where the cars need to come to a stop, open the door so that the students can exit the car. So we're not talking about like a conveyor belt of cars that we're just going to continually go, but they're going to have to stop.
Yeah.
And so there will be some backup. I'm just hoping that there's been some discussion with the town as far as traffic mitigation on this, because we're start of the day. Well, the buses, we're going to start arriving at 9:20, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And at the end of the day,
it's
just knowing if I were someone that lived in Amherst and depended on West Street to get from here to there at those times of days, I would want to know this.
Right. And so we kind of started preliminary conversations around like, traffic controls and these sorts of things. Like you'll notice like the signs that light up. We've been talking to them about that sort of thing, and then like traffic patterns a little bit. But yeah, it's hard to get an actual read on like how that exactly it impacts traffic until
it happens.
Right. That's the unfortunate part of that, is it's all theoretical until it actually happens. What we've done on our end was to increase. Normally you'll see the 2 people out there. I don't want to call them crossing guards because they're not officially, but the people with the
right. No, I know, and I am concerned with I mean, this is a pretty large increase in the number of vehicles that will be entering and exiting the West Street driveway, with having one person that's potentially, with other than a vest, lime green vest, a very now extremely busy traffic area.
Yeah. And we've added backup to our staff that's out there. So it'll be all hands on deck.
Good. That's good to hear. But I will, me, I'm going to be asking for another update on this next Friday. Actually, no, next Friday.
Good Friday.
Yes. So we will not be meeting next Friday.
Yeah.
But I think we would appreciate an update on the traffic. Again, I'm going to go back to that educational community and how whatever the schools do affects the community at large.
Yeah.
And it's going to be helpful information for people to know that there's on Monday through Friday that there is going to be potential traffic issues on West Street at certain times of the day.
Yep. And as much as we don't like to micromanage in our department, that's one of those we're going to have eyes on the objective and monitor it like very carefully in the beginning, just so we know where we need to make tweaks, where we're doing the right things. So I think a lot of what we normally would do for parent pickup will work, but in different ways, if that makes sense. We're going to have to make adjustments. It's not going to be normal. And like you say, it impacts. I mean, you have a residential neighborhood right past there in both directions, no matter which way you're going. So we definitely impact the community right there.
Right. And that's West Street is a busy street that people use to get from points south directly into either Amherst Center or UMass at times as well. So it impacts whatever happens there is going to impact the greater community.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else? Any parting? Again, Emma, we can't thank you enough, and Ben, of course. We can't thank either of you, both of you, enough, because it's like the image of the iceberg, where the public only sees that very small amount of work that you do, and what's below the surface is enormous. And that's the work that you're also doing.
And I have several staff members that would be upset with me if I didn't personally, directly, and publicly thank you for last night for the vaccination clinic. I can't say the exact number, but we're safer now than we were before, and you are a serious part of that.
There was quite a number of your staff that were at our clinic, as with Amherst staff. I mean, it's hard when you pull the data, right? Because people don't always live in the communities that they work in, to really get that granular data to know what was our true distribution of what school system people were coming from. But by people's addresses, it was a good variety. But also a large number of people from Amherst, even if we're just thinking about teachers and educators and school support staff that live in Amherst that were able to get vaccinated at that clinic. So strong work, everybody.
But we, as Ben said, we have a lot of school staff that don't always get included in the thanks. So our facilities and maintenance, transportation, the food service workers that are essential. They are absolutely essential. And we want to make sure, and we thank you, Emma, and Northampton for ensuring that they are getting the vaccines that they need as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.